So what then are the major policy problems facing higher education today in the United States? Historically, it has been a challenge for the government to ultimately get as many students as possible to attend college. The government has sought to ultimately provide equal access to education for those groups that have been historically excluded or unrepresented and underrepresented in higher education, such as women and minorities. It put in place affirmative action policies. Affirmative action policies were put in place to help ensure greater diversity in higher education. These policies give special consideration to women, racial minorities, and members of other historically excluded groups in the admissions process for public education institutions. And although the courts have stepped in over time and have said that quotas as part of affirmative action are illegal or unconstitutional, public institutions are allowed to give consideration to gender as well as minority status in the admissions process, but it can't be the sole deciding factor. Even with programs like this, today there are still gaps in educational attainment between the races. Further, there are gaps based upon income. The rising cost of tuition is impeding access for lower socioeconomic groups in society. Over the last decade, the percentage of low-income students who enroll in college immediately after high school has fallen significantly, from around 56% to 46%. Ultimately, tuition and fees have increased by a few percentage points across the board, yet aid has fallen to keep pace. What does this translate into? Well, a student debt crisis. Today, between the combination of tuition and fees, as well as the lack of financial aid, students are graduating on average with almost $30,000 in debt. Ultimately, you add this together, and it's about $1.5 trillion in student debt across the country. Yet, if students have paid this much to go to college and have this much in debt from going there, you would expect that their quality of their degree is worth it, right? Well, there are several danger signs that amount to the fact that students are learning less in college today than they have in previous decades. College students today are spending less time on their coursework than the predecessors did 50 years ago. And the evidence suggests, based upon their abilities, that they're probably learning less than students once did. Employers, thus, are complaining that many graduates they hire are deficient in the basic skills such as writing, problem solving, and critical thinking, which is ironic because college leaders and their faculties consistently rank these as the most important goals for an undergraduate education. And finally, while we focus so much on graduation rates and educational attainment, an increasing percentage of those that hold college debt actually don't graduate. These students have taken a handful of classes and are on the hook for the debt that comes with them, but they never do anything with that and ultimately never get that degree.